This week, some Drupal vulnerabilities, APT detection, DoD bug bounties, new DNS services, and breaches galore from Under Armour, Saks, Lord & Taylor, and of course, Panera, who I hear attackers made Swiss cheese of their network. Jason Wood from Paladin Security will be here to further comment on the Panera Bread breach. All that and more on this episode of Hack Naked News. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News.
The breach was huge news at the time.
Linux monitoring tool.
List of affected devices. You can check out the link in the show notes.
Ars Technica is reporting that hackers have cracked the Nintendo Switch this week.
Tracking people's locations and stuff like that.
Figuring out where the military bases are by the United States of America. It's kind of interesting.
And not just the United States of America, as it turns out.
Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome everyone to Hack Naked News, episode 167 for Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, coming at you live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. Make sure you check out our on-demand material. Some of the webcasts that we've done are available on demand. You can get them anytime at securityweekly.com/on-demand. And now for the security news. Drupal issues a highly critical patch for over 1 million sites deemed vulnerable. Drupal has released this highly critical patch for version 6, 7, and 8 of its, I guess we could call it popular CMS platform that could allow an attacker to take control of an affected site simply by visiting it. Drupal also warned of unprivileged and untrusted attacker could modify or delete data hosted on affected CMS platforms. It's so bad that we need a WAF. And I quote, "The only effective mitigation that we're advising is to upgrade, or second best is to put a rule into your WAF," says Greg Nattison, a Drupal security team member and product engineer from card.com. So make sure if you got Drupal, you pay attention to that and apply some updates, or update your WAF as a second best approach to actually patching the vulnerability. MITRE is launching a new service to evaluate tools for APT detection. With the new offering, MITRE will evaluate endpoint detection and response products for their ability to detect advanced threats. And I quote, "There are a lot of products on the market that try to detect adversary behavior, and we're trying to figure out what they can do," says Frank Duff, principal cybersecurity engineer at MITRE. Just a note, if you're going to quote people, make them easy to pronounce names like Frank Duff. Love it. Easy to pronounce. I got it. Nailed it. The results will be available to the public, Duff says, because it's important to both be transparent and contribute to the general community's base of knowledge. Now, since we have 3 data breaches to talk about, we're going to talk about 4 reasons why data breaches will continue. This was an article that stated that some good reasons why data breaches are still happening today are, number 1, hackers are targeting large corporations and individuals. I think this speaks to the old adage of, well, why would anyone want to hack me? Well, everyone is under attack because you have data that people are after, like your credit card number or your social security number that is worth money on what we deem the dark web. Number 2, passwords stink. We could do and have done entire shows on passwords and why they stink and alternatives. Number 3, digital property is increasingly becoming popular. More and more stuff is stored online. Therefore, attackers are going to perform data breaches. That's a pretty good indicator as to why we're seeing more and more data breaches. Also, number 4 states, and I saw this also in a different report, that we're being told today that hackers are evolving. Hacking is evolving faster than security. I question that last one, but maybe we'll reserve that as a topic for a future show somewhere else on the network. As we've got some breaches to talk about from Under Armour, whose breach compromised 150 million user accounts. eWeek has reporting that Under Armour has disclosed this breach on March 29th. It impacted 150 million user accounts of the fitness vendor's popular MyFitnessPal application, which provides exercise, diet, and calorie counting capabilities. Under Armour stated on March 25th, the MyFitnessPal team became aware that an unauthorized party acquired data associated with MyFitnessPal user accounts in late February 2018. Under Armour has not publicly identified the root cause of the breach. On to the US DoD. So that's your first teaser into the breaches, which is also a book, Into the Breach, by Michael Santarcangelo. But also in the news this week, the DoD hopes to not be in the news because of a breach and has disclosed a bug bounty program working with HackerOne. The Hack the DTS program launched in collaboration with HackerOne. It targets potential threats found in the Department of Defense enterprise system called Defense Travel System. The DTS serves DoD's massive travel services bureaucracy and is responsible for everything from generating itinerary to reimbursing millions of global DoD travelers. 5 million credit cards were exposed in Saks Fifth Avenue and Lord & Taylor data breaches. Sophos' Naked Security blog reported on the story, and quotes from Gemini Security, the firm who allegedly disclosed this breach as a result of finding it on the dark web, released a statement that said, on March 28th, 2018, Joker Stash Hacking Syndicate announced the release for sale of over 5 million stolen credit card and debit cards. In cooperation with several financial organizations, we have confirmed with a high degree of confidence that the compromised records were stolen from customers of Saks Fifth Avenue and Lord & Taylor stores. We estimate the window of compromise to be between May 2017 to present. Based on the analysis of the available data, the entire network of Lord & Taylor and 83 Saks Fifth Avenue locations have been compromised. The majority of stolen cards were obtained from New York and New Jersey locations. As of this writing, approximately 125,000 records have been released for sale, although they do expect the entire cache to become available in the following months. This appears to be a physical card theft, as the attackers are offering Tier 1 and Tier 2 data, basically different tracks on the mag stripe from cards. Chip and pin? Anyone, perhaps? That seems like a massive amount of cards to be collected from a physical breach, but it'll be interesting to see how this story unfolds. All right, again, take a short break from breaches because I don't want to overwhelm you with breaches, and I want to talk about Cloudflare launching 1.1.1.1 DNS service to improve internet privacy. DNS over HTTPS seems to be a thing now with this new service from Cloudflare, integrating support for a pair of security enhancements to DNS resolution, the two protocols being DNS over TLS, or Transport Layer Security, and DNS over HTTPS, both which transmit DNS queries over an encrypted data link. Cloudflare is also rumored to have spread this out over, I believe, 145 different data centers, making for a robust service. All you got to do is point your DNS to 1.1.1.1. Did I get that right? Did I have the right number in there? Yeah. So they will be supporting this new protocol that we talked about in collaboration with the story kind of goes along with the story we talked about last week about Firefox supporting DNS over HTTPS. Panera Bread has been slammed after sitting on a massive data leak for 8 months. Security journalist Brian Krebs is up in arms and highlighted the data leaks in a post on Monday evening, stating that the data, including names, email, and physical addresses, birthdays, and the last 4 digits of your credit card number, was available in plain text on Panera's site. Actually, the security researcher who discovered the bug and reported it 8 months ago, which is a long time before we found out about it, has published the full details. The link for that is in the show notes, and Panera has been publicly shamed on social media, and rightfully so. pseudo make me a sandwich. There's some kind of joke in there somewhere. The puns are just out of control with this story. We're going to talk more about the Panera Bread breach after this break from our sponsor, so stay tuned. IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for Teams by visiting itpro.tv/Security Weekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium IT Pro TV memberships using the code SECWeekly30. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/HNN. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. One could say that Panera Bread has failed to rise to the occasion. As Jason Wood points out in our expert commentary, Jason's here from Paladin Security. Jason, welcome.
Hey, Paul. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
I will try to hold back the puns, but I make no promises in our story for this week.
I understand. As we were talking about before the show, one of the Slack channels I'm in, I watched probably 20-some minutes of puns flying back and forth over this one. Everybody's having a good time with it.
Absolutely.
So, so what's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the InfoSec world is having a blast with this one. Making puns all over the place as they basically castigate Panera Bread for their response to a vulnerability report in their websites. And this was primarily started off with their delivery service website, and it appears it's gone on to a couple of others according to some of the things I've read. Basically, a gentleman named Dylan Hoylehan, sure I butchered that name, noticed a flaw in Panera Bread's delivery website. He makes a comment about being a Panera Bread customer, and that's kind of how he ran into this. And he found it back in August 2017. So he decided, well, let's do the right thing here and be nice and the whole bit. We'll talk to Panera Bread privately and let them know about the flaw so they can take care of this without any big public to-do. Basically, Panera came back and by telling Dylan that they did not like his sales pitch or his shakedown for money and lectured him on his inappropriate email. And then you can watch things go back and forth a little bit in Dylan's write-up on this on his blog post as he's posted screenshots of the emails that were going around. I've got those links here in the show note, or the link to that here in the show notes. And in the end, it boiled down to is Panera is not responding to the issue. They said they had fixed it. They didn't fix it. They started ignoring emails, things like that. Dylan finally threw up his hands at this and gave up. And at this point, he dumped it into a paste bin, contacted Brian Krebs and Troy Hunt to see if either of those gentlemen would be willing to help him out. And Brian Krebs responded back with it and with his own article. With Brian Krebs's article and much larger reach than most any of us have, Panera's finally started to respond to this, and they took down the sites and have been working to address the issue. But they've raised some of the ire of certainly Brian Krebs and a lot of folks online as they've continued to deny the seriousness of the issue, lowballing the number of affected users, things like that. Basically pointing the blame at various places other than themselves is what it sounds like. So that's kind of the rundown on the breach. What on earth does that have to do with us? And as I was looking at this, every so often we get somebody who has a data breach, and you watch how they handle it. Equifax comes to mind, and you think, wow, there's a great example of how not to do this.
Yes. Very much so.
What's that?
It is just a classic example of how not to handle a breach and the backlash that will ensue after that. for sure.
Yeah. As you're reading through this, you're just sitting there thinking, this is apparently has completely caught Panera Bread off guard. They were not ready for something like this at all. And the response just sucked, in my opinion, anyway. And this could happen really to any of us that has, works for an organization, right? We get an email saying, hey, I think you got found a problem in your site. Somehow they came up with our information, which is not terribly difficult to do. And they reach out to us and say, we've got a vulnerability in one of your systems, want to report this to you, things like that. And if we're not prepared for this and our organization is not prepared for this, we can really screw some things up.
They do have a pretty advanced application. I don't know. I've used it, which probably means my credit card's somewhere in the breach, perhaps. Having three kids, being able to go on your phone, place your order, and just run in and pick it up is pretty awesome. I did that once a while back. Probably, again, I'm probably in the breach somewhere. But it's convenient. It's pretty convenient. It was actually very nicely done, unlike some other people's apps that try and offer some kind of convenience. CVS was under scrutiny for number one, their app was very poorly done user experience-wise, and they were leaking data, your data, to other sites. So that app got removed. Panera, on the other hand, speaking from a user perspective, had a very nice user experience. But here you can see they are clearly ignoring security researchers and not willing to fix a vulnerability, which is like one of the biggest no-nos. Everyone has vulnerabilities. You got to own up to them and you got to fix them. The fact they sat on it for 8 months, I mean, think of how much they could have accomplished in remediating this breach in 8 months rather than just whining about it and trying to ignore it.
Right. And that was kind of what I was looking at this with. I mean, with Brian Krebs going out there and making this comment, or his article rather, it looks like they've kind of got this locked down a little bit, at least the flaws as it was exposed or published. But just a terrible way of handling it. They could have gotten way out there ahead of this back in August, right? And they essentially shot themselves in the foot due to their lack of preparation, is what it looks like.
I wonder too, Jason, like, are they not a DevOps shop, or are they a DevOps shop? Like, is this just a public relations fail, or is it they looked at how to fix this and realized it was going to take 8 months or longer to push out the appropriate software? Again, looking at the software, it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of developing nice software that's easy to use and reliable. Like, even when you go into the stores, you can use their kiosk system and enter in your order. Like, it's pretty nice software and it's easy to use. So this could be, my guess might be this just a public relations fail, or maybe they do realize that it's more work than it should be to actually push out new fixes, which is why they should go pick up a copy of the DevOps handbook and get started on that. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, here are the points that I kind of came up with this, so that are lessons to us, right? On what preparation for this sort of thing. This can happen to any of us. We can get an email where somebody reaches out to us. What was Panera's failings here? Well, it's hard to say. You ask some good questions there, but they're not communicating it. So it's good a guess as anybody else, right? We really don't know. First thing we're going to need to do if we wanted to start preparing for something like this is, one, you're going to have to convince the leadership of your organization, hey, this could happen to us, and maybe we ought to be a little bit ready for this. And that could be challenging. But we've got lots of examples in the news now that should illustrate this pretty well, that somebody could just randomly reach out and say, hey, you got a problem. And we really need this buy-in from our leadership, because we're going to need that top cover, because we're not working in a vacuum here. There's not going to be just somebody for security who's involved in this. We're going to have to involve members from other teams, and we're going to need that approval and buy-in to really get things moving, so that we can have marketing and public relations and stuff like that, development, et cetera, on board for how we're going to respond to this. With that in mind, we need to provide a way for communication so that people can reach us in a way that is secure and is clearly defined for them to reach out to us. One of the things Dylan commented on was he had to hunt around a lot to try and find any way of contacting Panera to report this to them. And somebody else could certainly throw up their hands at it and say, screw it, I'm just going to dump it on Pastebin and move on with my day. So you want to put the contact information out there, public encryption keys, so that somebody could email you the report of what's going on, rather than pass it in clear text. And, like I said, just give a channel for these folks who are being nice to us here, at least talking to us first, rather than dumping it out there to the public. And then you really need to make some preparations for communications. This is where certainly you're going to get into some things that are non-technology related, or as far as organizations or groups inside the organization. So, you need to start to asking some questions. What will be said to the person who's reporting the flaw? How will they be kept informed of the investigation and remediation efforts, right? Otherwise, if they're not knowing what's going on, they feel like they're being ignored, the chances increase of them dumping this to the public. So, what are we going to share? What information can we share? What information should we never share? Things like that. Who's responsible for that? Making that communication. And what will be said publicly when this finally becomes public, right? At some point, somebody's going to make a comment about this online. So what are we going to say about this? Are we going to wave our hands and throw some smoke and mirrors and try and deny that it ever happened? Potentially make the situation worse? Or are we going to, like Paul said, this can happen to anybody. Are we going to own it, say what we've done, and move on with it? Move on with things.
I mean, at the end of the day, they have to accept that this is how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I mean, it's just stuff happens, right?
Sorry,
that was
bad
terrible.
pun. Terrible pun. Terrible.
That was bad.
That's bad.
Obviously, the answers to these questions are going to vary from organization.
It was a half soup and half sandwich attempt at a response.
It was pretty half-baked.
It was half-baked, yes. Half-baked.
I'd like to say that was original, but I've only read that 40 times today.
Love it.
But yeah, so let's see. Obviously, this is going to vary for your organization and maybe what's going on, but at least be prepared with some guidelines, right? Making it up while you're under fire is pretty much a way to make things worse. And that's what happened here with Panera. If they had communicated more, let's say that it took 8 months to do the release and Brian's article just happened to come out at the time that they fixed this, which I doubt. If they'd communicated with Dylan in the first place, maybe this would have never happened. So some good communication, responding to things in a timely manner, getting things fixed, can go a long ways. Certainly when you've got somebody who is already kind of trying to be nice, right, and talk directly to us rather than dump things out online directly. Our goal here is to avoid things spiraling out of control. And, for the next couple of days, Panera Bread gets to be the butt of all jokes, which I'm sure they're enjoying. And so, be prepared, act in good faith, be ready to do some communication and resolve things in a timely manner. And you find that you don't, end up being the joke of the week. And so, there's just some ideas on what we can do to be prepared inside of our own organizations for when things like this occur.
Jason Wood from Paladin Security, thank you very much. That concludes this episode of Hack Naked News. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.